The Philippine Constitution. What is a constitution? It is a body of fundamental principle or established precedents according to which a state or other organization is acknowledged to be governed. This constitution has evolved since 1897, the Biak na Bato Constitution, the 1899 Malolos Constitution, Tidings-McDuffie Act of 1943, the 1935 Philippine Constitution, the 1943 Constitution, the 1973 Constitution, the 1986 Constitution, and last, the 1987 Constitution.
For today's part, I will be the one who report the Biak na Bato Constitution on 1897. The Constitution of Biak na Bato was the provisionary constitution of the Philippines Republic during the Philippine Revolution and was publicized by the Philippine Revolution government on November 1, 1887. The Constitution was borrowed from the COBA and was written by Isabelo Artaquillo and Felix Ferrer from Spain, and they translated it into Filipino. The organs of the government under the Constitution were the Supreme Council was vested with the power of the Republic and headed by the President and the 4 department secretaries. Interior, Foreign Affairs, Treasury, and War. Isabelo Artaquillo for Interior, Antonio Montenegro for Foreign Affairs, Baldomero Aguinaldo for Treasury, and Emiliano Rego de Dios in War. The Consejo Supremo de Gracia y Justicia, or Supreme Council of Grace and Justice, was given authority to make decisions and affirm or falsify the sentences rendered by other courts and to dictate rules for the administration of justice. The Asamblea de Representantes, or Assembly of Representatives, was to be congregated after the revolution to create a new constitution to elect a new council of government and representative of the people. Preamble of Biak na Bato Constitution. The separation of Philippines from Spanish monarchy and their formation into an independent state with its government called the Philippine Republic has been ended south by the revolution in the existing war, begun on the 24th of August 1896, and therefore it is named by the power delegated by the Filipino people, interpreting faithfully their desire and ambition. With the representative of the revolution in a meeting at Biak na Bato, November 1, 1897, anonymously adopted the following article for the constitution of the state.
Tidings-McDuffie Act of 1934, or also known as the Philippine Independence. The Tidings-McDuffie Law in 1934 established the Commonwealth government. It was a form of government and transition toward independence. It provided for a 10-year transition period after which the Philippine independence would be proclaimed and established. The act was introduced by Senators Millard Tydings and John McDuffie, and it was signed into law by President Franklin D. Roosevelt on March 24, 1934. It was a response to growing nationalist sentiment in the Philippines and pressure from Filipino leaders for independence. Thus, Tidings-McDuffie was not considered as constitution. Because the Tidings-McDuffie Act is an important law that granted independence to the Philippines, but it is not part of the Constitution because it is a regular law that was passed by the Congress and does not amend the Constitution. The Tidings Act played a significant role in shaping the modern Philippine government by providing the legal framework for Philippine independence and establishing for Commonwealth government.
Now let us proceed to the 1935 Philippine Constitution. This constitution was written in 1934 with the goal of meeting the United States' expectation of political maturity among Philippine leaders. The 1935 Constitution. It was written by Claro and Recto and is created in accordance with the establishment of the Commonwealth Republic. Tidings-McDuffie Law of 1934 caused the drafting of the 1935 Constitution. Effectivity was halted during the Japanese occupation, but continued in 1946 until 1972. Constitution had to be approved by President Franklin Roosevelt. Ratification of Constitution included women for the first time. The Filipino people imploring the aid of divine providence in order to establish a government that shall embody their ideals, conserve and develop the patrimony of the nation, promote the general welfare, and secure to themselves and their posterity the blessings of independence under a regime of justice, liberty, and democracy, do ordain and promulgate this Constitution. Let us now dig deeper about the 1935 Constitution or ang Saligang Batas ng 1935. Ang Saligang Batas ang kataas-taasang batas ng bansa at batayan ng lahat ng batas at opisyal na nakautusang maaaring pagtibayin ng Kongreso at Pangulo. Kalipunan ito ng mga nasusulat na patakaran dapat sundin ng buong bansa. Itinakda ng Saligang Batas ang mga bagay na dapat gawin ng Estado at pamahalaan para sa mamamayan at ang mga tungkulin ng mamamayan sa Estado at pamahalaan. Isinasaad din nito ang mga bagay na hindi dapat gawin ng pamahalaan. February 8, 1935, araw kung kailan nabuo ang Saligang Batas ng 1935 dahil sa komisyon ng Batas Tidings-McDuffie na magkaroon na ng pagsasarili ang Pilipinas. Ginawa ito sa loob ng 6 na buwan. Naganap ang halalan para sa 202 delegado. Pinadaan ito noong Pebrero 1935 at pinagtibay ito ni Pangulong Franklin Delano Roosevelt noong Marso 23, 1935. Tatlong sangay ng pamahalaan, tagapagpaganap o executive, tagapagbatas o legislative, tagapaghukom o judiciary. Tagapagpaganap o executive, pinamumunuan ito ng Pangulo at ng pangalawang Pangulo na inhalal ng kwalipikadong mga botante. Ang Pangulo ng Pilipinas ang siyang tagapagpaganap at puno ng bansa. Pangalawa, tagapagbatas o legislative. Ang Kongreso ng Pilipinas ang humahawak ng kapangyarihan ng tagapagbatas. Ang paggawa, pagsuso at pagwawalang isa ng mga batas ang pangunahing gawain nito. Binubuo ng dalawang kapulungan ang Kongreso, ang mataas na kapulungan o Senado at ang mababang kapulungan o kapulungan ng mga kinatawan. Tagapaghukom o judiciary, ang Korte Suprema at mababang korte ang bumubuo nito. Ito ang may karapatang magbigay ng interpretasyon o magpaliwanag sa tunay na kahulugan ng batas. Ang hukuman ang nagpapasya upang pangalagaan ang mga karapatan, buhay, ari-arian ng bawat mamamayan ng bansa.
For today's part, I will be the one who will report the 1943 Constitution. The Preparatory Committee for Philippine Independence or PCPI kaya siya ang ipakilala atong 1943 Philippine Constitution during Japanese occupation sa atuang bansa. And PCPI members were delegates or gipakilala to the 1935 Constitution. Or ang PCPI members kay na-assign sila ani na convention na drafted sa 1935 Constitution. The Constitution was ratified by the Kalibapi in Manila on September 7, 1943. Or ratified means given formal consent. Then ang meaning sa Kalibapi is kapisanan ng paglilingkod sa bagong Pilipinas. Kanina Constitution was effect in Japanese-controlled areas of the Philippines from October 14, 1943 to August 17, 1945. Meaning, ang Japanese ang nakontrol sa Pilipinas ani na mga panahon na within 1 year and 10 months. United States and Commonwealth government did not recognize the institution. Kay murag Philippines dapat ang mamahala dili ang Japanese. Og si Laurel kay gidissolve niya ang Second Philippine Republic after Japan's surrender. and ilang kwan nila preamble for short is the Filipino people proclaim their independence and establish a government to promote the nation's welfare and contribute to the world order. Next is the 1973 Constitution. The 1973 Constitution was passed after Marcos declared martial law. Then kani siya na kuan na Constitution is the Fourth Republic from 1973 to 1986, which means 3 years ni siya na Philippine Republic. Kuyog sa unicameral legislature, ang presidente ug ang prime minister kay na elected for a 6-year term. Marag diri na nagsugod ang 6-year term sa pagka-presidente or pagka-prime minister. The president was ceremonial head of state while the prime minister was head of government and commander-in-chief of the armed forces. Meaning is kanang ang prime minister is kanang mas dagan pa siya kuan trabaho kaysa kay president ani na time. The 1973 Constitution amendments on 4 occasions. In 1976, the president has legislative powers until martial law is lifted. Or for short, ang presidente kani siya na time is ang presidente pwede siya mahimong prime minister or nahimo siyang prime minister ani na time. O ang interim National Assembly ani na time is na-replace siya into interim batasang pambansa. The retirement age of members of the judiciary was increased in 1980, meaning ang retirement age ani na time or ang member ani sa judiciary kay was extended to 70 years. Sa 1981 amendments restored executive power to the president, restored direct election and created an executive committee to assist the president. Meaning dire is kanay kanang 13 members na mag-assist sa president and ang prime minister kay nahimo siyang mere head of the cabinet or meaning na siya title na secretary ani na time. The 1984 amendment abolished the executive committee and restored the vice president. Or meaning, pahawa ning executive committee o gipulihan siya into a vice president. The preamble of this constitution is that the Filipino people seeks to establish a government that promotes the general welfare, conserves and develops the nation's patrimony, and secures democracy.
The 1986 Freedom Constitution. On March 25, 1986, newly installed President Corazon Aquino issued Proclamation No. 3, abolishing the 1973 Constitution, the Parliament, the Supreme Court of the Office of the Prime Minister, and all national and local positions, creating a revolutionary government under what she called the Provisional Constitution of the Republic of the Philippines. 1986-1992 Administration. Corazon Aquino issued Proclamation No. 3 on March 25, 1986. Abolished the 1973 Constitution, the Parliament, the Supreme Court, the Prime Minister's Office, and all national and local positions. Provisional Constitution of the Republic of the Philippines, effective from March 25, 1986 to February 1, 1987. What Corazon Aquino implemented during 1986 Constitution. Declaring a national policy to implement reforms mandated by the people protecting their basic rights, adopting a provisional constitution, and providing for an orderly transition to a government under a new constitution. Whereas, the new government was installed through a direct exercise of the power of the Filipino people, assisted by the units of the new armed forces of the Philippines, whereas the heroic action of the people was done in defiance of the provisions of the 1973 Constitution as amended. Whereas the direct mandate of the people as manifested by their extraordinary action demands a complete reorganizations of the government, restoration of democracy, protection of basic rights, rebuilding of confidence in the entire governmental system, eradication of graft and corruption, restoration of peace and order, maintenance of the supremacy of civilian authority over the military, and the transition to a government under a new constitution in the shortest time possible. Whereas during the period of transition to a new constitution, it must be granted that the government will respect basic human rights and fundamental freedoms. Wherefore, I, Corazon C. Aquino, President of the Philippines, by virtue of the power vested in me by the sovereign mandate of the people, do hereby promulgate the following provisional constitution. What happened why 1986 Provisional Freedom Constitution was made? President Marcos' regime was remembered for its record of human rights violation, particularly against political opponents, student activists, journalists, religious workers, farmers, and others who opposed the Marcos dictatorship. The Filipinos cried out for freedom and change, not just about the president, but about the government and in the entire country. Cory Aquino was elected in 1986 and heralded as the heroine of the Revolutionary People Power Movement. Aquino restored democracy in the Philippines, to recognize the government and establish a constitutional commission to draft a formal constitution for the Philippine government. Contents of the 1986 Constitution: Article 1, National Territory; Article 3, Citizenship; Article 4, Bill of Rights; Article 5, Duties and Obligation of Citizens; Article 6, Suffrage. The articles from 1973 Constitution that was remained from 1986 Constitutions are Article 2, Declaration of Principles and State Policies; Article 7, President; Article 10, Judiciary; Article 11, Local Government; Article 12, Constitutional Commission Number; Article 13, Accountability of Public Officers; Article 14, National Economy and Patrimony; and lastly, Article 15, General Provisions. The articles that were removed are Article 8, Batasang Pambansa or Parliament; Article 9, Prime Minister and Cabinet; Article 16, Amendments; Article 17, Transitory Provisions. How 1986 Constitution differ from 1973 Constitution? Accordance with establishment of the Revolutionary, parts of the human rights remained from the previous Constitution.
The 1987 Constitution. This Constitution, approved by the 1896 Constitutional Commission on October 12, 1896. It was also presented to President Corazon C. Aquino on October 15, 1896. This Constitution was ratified on February 8, 1987 by a plebiscite and proclaimed in force on February 11, 1987. The 1987 Constitution operates since 1987 during the administration of Cory Aquino, Fidel Ramos, Joseph Estrada, Gloria Macapagal Arroyo, Benigno Aquino III, and the current administration of Rodrigo Roa Duterte. The preamble of the Constitution provides that we should establish a government which shall conserve and develop our patrimony. Our patrimony includes our public forest, mangroves, wildlife, and flora and fauna which should be conserved, protected, and renewed.